from Rally, who says, the Legion patching 77 days, patch every 77 days, was amazing. But don't you think that the sacrifice of WoD's third raid allowed them a unique run-up to Legion? The Legion is an exception because it added time from WoD, not the standard. So this is a big old can of worms. It's very interesting. This is not something that anybody at Blizz told me. It was stuff that Blizzard people told people that I know and trusted at the time and talked to. There was a Shatrath raid planned. The reason why Yrel just... A lot of people liked her, and then a lot of people are like, oh, wow, that went Mary Sue real quick. How'd she get so powerful and didn't, she didn't earn that?
Yeah.
Well, that's because we got, we got Act 1 of Yrel's arc. We got Act 3 of Yrel's arc. We didn't get Act 2. There was a different plan. From what I understand, it was like Iron Horde raids, and then an Iron Horde raid around or maybe Legion-y, but Shatrath raid. Yeah. And I think it was then maybe supposed to be the Hellfire. Not 100% sure what it was supposed to be, but there was supposed to be a Shatrath raid. That was killed because of the WoD response.
That's so tragic.
So, yeah, you are right, Rally. Legion was unique in that way. The question I'd say is, was Mists of Pandaria unique? Now, it was unique in having a 14-month patch 5.4. That was unique.
Brutal.
And certainly whenever we see Ray D tier as the tombstone in your garrison, you basically just feel like you're being taunted for buying the product you've just bought. Was not a cute joke, Liz. But, we got 5.1 soon after MOP. 5.2, we got the Dino Island that had your, getting your bones in Undasta. Yeah. We got a multi-week storyline. We got multi-week island progression. We got the Trove of the Thunder King. We got a really big, awesome new raid. We got Warlock Greenfire. Then we got patch 5.3. I definitely like 5.3 more than most people because I thought it was interesting and experimental. And then 5.4, we got a great raid and we got the Timeless Isle, which even though the Timeless Isle was asset reuse of the Jade Forest tile set, it was, that's just the place you want to be.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And that all worked out really well. In that period of active patches, it was awesome. Yeah. Same goes for Legion. And I'd basically say that, that was unique stuff in the run-up to Warlords of Draenor. The run-up to Legion, because they axed so much of WoD, and they obviously moved on to Legion a bit earlier because they knew they needed a big winner. But I feel like that Legion amount of content is what should be standard based on how much people pay for the game.
Absolutely. This is something I've been waiting to say for... Well, this is technically an unfair comparison, but I was thinking about it earlier today. Genshin Impact's free to play. Obviously, it relies on whale money big time, but the rate of content they have been blasting out has been completely insane. That game's on, I think, 1.4 now or soon, which included an entire dating sim element for a couple characters. And that game's been out for 6 months, I think. 6 or 7 months. It's completely insane, and it's got no asking price. Obviously, whales make up for that.
Adding a dating mini game to your gacha game seems like a way to make infinite money.
Oh yeah, of course. I think it's revenues over $1 billion on mobile now. But anyway, I think I agree that it should be standard. Absolutely. It's just unacceptable now for content to be not coming out fast, and not even just purely from the consumer standpoint, from the competitive standpoint. They're losing to everyone.
Simple as that.
I think that's
ultimately,
the part.
fairness and context is irrelevant.
Yeah.
What matters is competition in the market.
Yeah.
And what other people are doing and the other places you can go. I remember for the news channel covering, it was people saying that was it the Netflix's real competitors Fortnite, or Fortnite's real competitors Netflix?
It was Netflix complaining about, I think it was Netflix complaining about video games, I think it was.
Yeah, it was basically the point was that everybody's competing for attention and eyeballs.
Yeah.
And if World of Warcraft feels like it's getting slower and slower and slower, and even if the market is just giving you more and more and more options, then World of Warcraft kind of loses by default if that trend continues.
Yeah.
And as Tao Li said, Blizzard's own developers, apparently some of them anyway, think that 9.1 will be so late that people will be like jaded against it by the time it comes out.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, especially if people could continue playing with nothing to do and get angry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Callie Glove says, then why didn't BFA spur the same sort of reaction? It's almost as bad, if not just as bad.
That's
It's interesting. I'd say that, 7.3 was 3 new zones. It was like pretty big. They tried to make it feel like a mini expansion.
Yeah.
8.3 was reusing 2 zones with some of the worst world content we had seen.
Yeah.
Like, you would have taken Tanan Jungle of WoD over what they did with Uldum and the Veil.
Definitely not the person to say that to, because I actually really like Tanan.
Fair, yeah. BFA was not cut short as brutally.
Yeah.
But I think that BFA's storylines, I mean, the way that N'Zoth was done so dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, they took the cool Lovecraftian, cosmic horror, and they made it lame and boring and fast and something you went through basically without noticing. Yeah. Is that how any of us thought that Ny'alotha would look? I mean, you look at that raid. That raid is like, make an entrance, make this bit, flip it over there.
Yep.
The raid was
mostly skybox.
Mostly skybox.
Yeah.
That's not what Ny'alotha should have been.
No.
I imagine they planned the big Old God finale to be BFA's answer to Argus.
Yeah.
And compare that to what we got.
Yeah. I think I actually have a decent answer for, I guess, 2 things. One is how cutting WoD short set Legion up for the 77 days absolute blast of just content, and why that didn't happen after BFA. And to start with the BFA point first, I think what happened actually was, instead of making the same decision they made in WoD, which was, what can we remove? Can we just remove the middle and then be done with it? I think that was more feasible to them, so they made that decision. But with BFA, 8.2 solved 8.1, 8.0's problems, but they couldn't remove 8.2 because they were in complete triage mode immediately. They didn't cut off the limb. They tried to save it. Yeah. So they didn't actually buy themselves a load of time for Shadowlands. They kind of did a little bit in the middle, where they needed 8.3 to happen, and they needed 8.3 to happen. They needed 8.2, especially because all the story wasn't necessary. Could you imagine if 8.3 didn't have 8.2?
Yeah, I mean, even look at how the faction war ended.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so lame. The actual quest content of 8.2.5 was so lame.
It's terrible.
You basically spent as much time sitting watching a movie as you did playing the video game. It's pretty, I mean, the C-Dev team will have been working on those big cinematics long in advance. So that's the content that's easier to lock in and get a production schedule going for. It's then telling that the in-game, pairing of those cool cinematics was so lackluster. And yes, it's that thing where Legion was awesome, and then some of the wrong lessons were learned from Legion, which meant that BFA fell over, and then they were in triage mode for so long. They were triaging the launch of patch 8.3 while they were in Shadowlands development, and shortly after they were finished triaging that, COVID happened.
Yeah.
As much as we can talk about how this sucks as customers, can you imagine the dev experience there? Everything went wrong. And it didn't just go wrong oh dear, whoopsie happened, we're going to get over it. No, it went wrong from the start of 2018.
Yeah.
From BFA Alpha to now, they have had consistent issues.
Yep. Some internal, some completely out of their control.
Yeah. 3 years. 3 years in the ring. just taking punches.
Yeah. Bad.
You know, we can pause our sub and come back later.
Yeah.
But like that's their day-to-day reality.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully companies. What's the stress hormone?
Oh God, cortisol.
Yeah. So you know the way you can get is it a Dex or something? The
No idea.
constant blood glucose monitors that like just output to an app in your phone.
Oh.
Imagine if you had a constant cortisol monitor installed, like you know, a little chip in all the Blizzard employees. Like I've got to imagine for the WoW team, it has just been very high for a long time.
Sure.
And I don't mean that in some sort of way to beat them up or anything. I mean that as a way that like just to say to everybody that, you know, as much as there are a lot of issues to talk about, god damn, you gotta show the empathy. You gotta think about their experience, because can you imagine just being in 3 years of constant issues and constantly being in the back foot? I mean, you know, we still have to say the things that we say, and those are very inconvenient for the devs, but at the same time we have to recognize the dev realities that have happened.
Yep. The truth doesn't care about empathy, although we absolutely should. I think that's
Yeah, it's like that ruthless competitiveness of the market doesn't give a shit. It's just going to grind through people to get the results. We still need to think about the people who get ground through.
Yep, absolutely.
There's a follow-up from Rally who said, my point was less that it's acceptable, but that if it costs a raid to get Legion to be what it was, what does that say about their internal structure? I would say that they are bad at seeing problems ahead of time. They seemingly gleefully walk into landmines, and that means that they set themselves up for future failure, and that means that it's pretty hard for them to get ahead of themselves, such that seemingly getting a Legion costs us a scuffed expansion that gets abandoned. And yep, shouldn't be like that. And that all just comes down to they clearly need to, in my opinion, simplify the systems of the game, prioritize content, and perhaps try to get more resources on board. Apparently the team's the largest it's ever been, but it's if it doesn't feel like that, then there's an issue.
Yeah, it's I think they just need to put the priority on getting content creation faster. That's fundamentally it, I think, because you know, they should look at how they made Legion and go, all right, can we do that again? Can we do that again? Can we hire, you know, can we spend 500 million to get all these people in to do this, and then, you know, we'll be good after that. It's just that major investment and immediate sacrifice needs to be made. The only problem is, how can they make a sacrifice when they're currently not making any sacrifices that we're aware of, and they're already struggling?
Yeah, and then they maybe would wonder about opportunity cost. You know, would it be worth putting all that money into World of Warcraft when that money could go into another product that could be its own explosive growth, new IP?
Yeah.
So,